Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So hopefully you watched the pound versus the dollar depth of market play out and made some interesting observations. We are now going to go through the exact same thing together. I've made my own list of observations and we can compare our lists. Now, don't worry if you only got a few of these or even maybe none when you were making your own list. That's the whole point of us doing it together. By the end of this video, you should be fully up to speed. What I've also done is given you my list in the PDF download section. It's called DOM Observation Follow-up. You can print that off and I want you to tick it off as we go along. Very important though, don't just tick it off for the sake of it. Only tick it off if you understood the point I'm making. If not, just rewind that little bit again and observe again until you understand that particular point. Now, just before I hit play, just bear in mind that whilst we are going to tick off things on my list in the order I have them here, in reality, these things on the list are all happening, often all at the same time. So don't worry too much about the order of the things. It is just easier for us to tick them off one by one, just to keep things neat. So let's hit play. I'll also pause every time we make an observation. So let's pause it there. So straight away, can you see we are seeing aggressive market orders getting filled on both sides? For example, someone has just come in and sold 6 units at 123.92, i.e. they have got aggressive use day market order. Instead of using a passive order to sell by sitting on one of these prices on the offer and waiting for someone to come to them, they've actually reached across to the bid side. So the bid side was at 83, it dropped to 77, and 6 sell market orders are recorded exactly where we expect to see them in the sold column. 6 units were sold right now, and that person is in the market in a short position. Same for buyers. We see someone has bought 16 units here at 123.93 by using a market order and reaching across to the offer side, so he or she could just have sat on the bid and waited for someone to come to them, but instead they reached across by using a market order and buying now at 123.93. So the offer was at 27, it dropped to 11, and the bought column is filled with the 16 market orders. 16 units were bought right now, and that person is in the market in a long position. So someone has sold 6 units, but someone has also bought 16. Can you see buying and selling is fairly even at the moment? Tick that off. Let's continue. Now, another quick observation. Do you agree? Passive orders on the outside, they're not in the market. So for example, these people offering 84 units at 124, whilst they may want to get short, they are not actually short yet. They are passive supply, as we discussed before, whereas this person who made an aggressive move, selling 1 unit, 123.94 using a market order, he actually is short right now. Hence, his unit got recorded here. Same the other way around. None of these people are in the market yet. So, for example, these people bidding for 110 units at 123.91, whilst they may want to get long, they aren't actually long yet. But the person that got aggressive and reached across to the other side, used a market order and bought 6 units, he is long right now. So that's the top 3 things already crossed off our observation list. Let's continue. Next observation. Can you see how the supply on both sides is not consistent? It is constantly changing. For example, here, it's quite funny. It is constantly changing. Can you see that? Same on both sides. Do you see? It just keeps changing. It's not constant. You could quite easily argue some of this supply on the outer columns is either fake or getting placed and cancelled intentionally, almost as if there's some game playing going on. Also, did you notice it is being placed and changed so fast, almost in the blink of an eye? Do you agree? It clearly is not a human being doing that. Most likely is some sort of machine or algorithm. Finally, do you agree? There just seems to be plenty of supply available on both sides, an abundant amount of supply. as a trader, having enough supply, it doesn't seem to be something you need to be particularly worried about. There's supply everywhere, which leads me to my next point. But let's pause for that after letting it play out just a little more and just make sure you've got as far as I have in terms of ticking things off. Now, another very important observation is, can you see how there seems to be a huge mismatch between what is actually being bought and sold, i.e. market orders in the middle column, and what is being supplied on the outer columns? So for example, can you see we have 120 units available to us at 123.96. Let's see how many units are actually bought there. The answer is 10. It's crazy, right? Let's watch that again, twice. And again. So did you see 120 units were available, but only 10 got bought there and we moved up? And that's not a one-off, it's everywhere. Would you agree? The average supply is around 100 units at every price, but only 5, 6, maybe 10 or 20 is actually being bought or sold. So overall, on average, there is around 5 times more supply than what is being demanded. This is very common in financial markets, and why, as I said to you, I focus 100%, not 99%, 100% of my focus is on market orders, the columns in the middle. Think of it this way. If there is 5 times the supply available compared to what is being demanded, do you agree? Supply is not really something for us to be concerned about. There is plenty of it. It never runs out. It's always there if you need it, but not something to bother wasting your attention on. Add to that the fact if only 5 or 10 is actually getting filled, it backs up all the last few observations we just made, i.e. a lot of this supply. We don't really know how much of it is actually real, so I don't waste my time with it. And anyway, most importantly, as you now know very well, people on the outside are not actually in the market anyway. They are passive, so who cares? Focus on what is actually driving the market. People who want to be in it are already filled market orders. Which perfectly leads me to my next point. If you still don't quite get it, ask yourself this. If people in the middle 2 columns didn't exist, in fact, let's wipe them out, and we only had supply as we do here, and no one placed any market orders, where would the market go? Have a think about it for a few moments. The answer is nowhere. It would just be a straight line. Let's sit here and watch it for 20 to 30 seconds. Where is it going? Nowhere. Not moving. Do you see? If there are no market orders, people hitting buy or sell, i.e. people in the middle 2 columns, candles would print in a straight line like this, because time would pass, but this market would go nowhere. You just have a straight line. Buyers and sellers using market orders in the middle 2 columns are 100% what is causing the market to move up and down, which leads us nicely to our next observation on our list. Let's bring our market orders back for that. So did you notice every time market orders print in the middle 2 columns, we move to the next price and the candle ticks up? Now I have a question for you before we just hit play. If no one was willing to place a market order and buy these 117 contracts, where would the market go? Again, let me give you a few seconds just to think about it. I'll repeat, if no one was willing to place a market order and buy these 117 contracts, where would the market go? The answer is nowhere. You just saw that. It would just stay here. It wouldn't go anywhere. If the supplier reduced his supply to 100, where would the market go? if no one was willing to buy it using a market order? Nowhere. What if the supplier reduced his supply to 80? Where would the market go if no one was willing to buy it? Nowhere. If the supplier reduced his supply to 50, where would the market go if no one was willing to buy it? Nowhere. Finally, what if the supplier reduced his supply to 10? Where would the market go if no one was willing to buy it? Nowhere. Need I go on? Supply does not move the market. In fact, you must have noticed that supply changes all the time, jumps up and down, flickers up and down, and does crazy things. But where does the market go? Nowhere. However, as soon as aggressive buyers and sellers using market orders in the middle two columns suddenly decide, right, I've had enough of this waiting and hit the market, i.e. use market orders, what suddenly happens? Well, let's see. Now I'm going to pause it there. Can you see it is aggressive buyers coming into the marketplace? In this instance, 10, 20, 47, 1, 11, and so on. Buyers who didn't want to just sit there on the supply, on the bid side. These are buyers using market orders, leaning across the other side, getting aggressive and hitting buy right now and eating through supply on the offer that actually causes the market to rise. If these buyers hadn't got aggressive and hit buy on their platform using market orders, it doesn't matter what the suppliers did. Jump up and down through hoops, change their supply up and down. You've seen it for yourself. This market would not have gotten anywhere. Let's watch it back just one more time. You can rewind it as much as you need to. The point is, if these buyers in the middle column using market orders had not got aggressive and bought the market, the candle on your chart would be flat. However, the buyers did get aggressive and they did buy the market. So instead, can you see we have a bullish candle? 100% of that move in this candle was caused by market orders. Remember, passive orders or supply does not move the market. For the market to move, it requires someone to actually buy it. To do that, you need to place a market order. Now, those of you that are very eagle-eyed would also have noticed the middle two columns also form the shape of this candlestick. Can you see? It's exactly the same shape, even with a tiny wick at the bottom. That settles the argument once and for all. Market orders, the middle two columns, drive the marketplace. It's as simple as that. Supply is of course important, but as we already established, we have more than enough of it in financial markets. And you even saw for yourself that a lot of it keeps disappearing and coming back and disappearing and coming back, which is clearly some game playing going on, perhaps by algorithms. And in any case, who cares if they're playing games with each other? They're not actually in the market. Think about it. If someone kept placing orders then cancelling them, placing orders then cancelling them, placing orders then cancelling them, do you care? They're not in the market. Why do we even care? Let's focus on people who actually want to get in the market. Market orders. Now we will talk about algorithms and why they're doing this game playing on the supply side later on. Ultimately, people in the supply column are not in the market until a market order is placed. Remember, I always said, do not take my word for anything. See it for yourself, which you've done. Market orders form the shape of the candlestick. So it stands to reason that that is what is moving the market. Now, if you didn't think about this next question, don't worry. But if you did, I'm giving you a triple A star. So what I'm hoping you're thinking is, hang on, if market orders are what are driving the market, why do we even need to look at supply? What's the point? It's always there, but why do we even need it? Why don't we just remove the supply columns and focus on what is moving the market and actually creating the shape of the candlestick? Market orders, people's actual fills. Why don't we just get rid of the supply column? It's pointless. We know supply is always there if we need it. It's not going to run out. The answer is yes, we can. It was not a trick question. In fact, we should get rid of the supply columns. That is exactly what the footprint chart is. It is the depth of market with the supply columns removed. You can see that here. It even draws the candlestick shape for you around the market orders and removes the supply columns for the reasons we have discussed at length. Perfect. Do you see? You don't even need the depth of market. And believe me, I was tempted to not even bother giving this to you. However, I decided in the end that it actually is quite helpful for you just to play around with it a little. There's no harm after all, but as I promised you all along, we will just take the bits we need, in this case the market orders, and eventually we will get rid of the depth of market and just move on. For now, however, let's just park that conversation. We'll discuss that in much more detail when we move on to the footprint section. For now, I just wanted to get you thinking about it. Remember, the point of this exercise, after all, is just to make observations. Asking yourself, hang on, given all that we know about supply, do we even need to look at it? Just let it settle in your mind. For now, let's finish our final observations and we can get you set up with the dome so you can at least have a little play around with it. Now, to cover the last few observations, I'm not going to bother pressing play. You can watch it back in your own time. I'm just going to fast forward it to the next point I want to discuss. Now, firstly, you can see the market has got very long. A lot of buyers have bought the market. We can see that in the third column. I want you to be sick of hearing these two words, so I'm going to say them again. It's all market orders. People actually hitting buy that have driven this market up. Now, the observation I wanted you to see is, I don't know if you noticed this when you were watching it, but look what happens to the numbers in the middle two columns as we go back down. For example, we can see 36, 7, 50, and 19 on the way up. I'm going to leave those numbers on the side just to remind you of them, because look what happens as we go back down. Disappeared. The numbers are gone. Rewind it a couple of times if you missed it, but can you see? Those numbers are gone. Does that mean those transactions never happened? Absolutely not. They were market orders, so of course they happened. The problem is, when institutional traders use the depth of market, they typically have it set up to wipe out what has printed as we go back over it. The reason is, can you imagine every time you kept going over the same prices throughout the day? Sometimes you could trade over the same prices for hours. The numbers that you see here in the middle two columns, they'll just start getting out of control. So they like to just wipe them out as we go over them. Can you see? This presents a record keeping problem. Now, we have two ways of dealing with that. Either we can use a footprint chart, which we will discuss later on, or we can use a volume profile, which is just a ledger or record keeper. As you can see, this is something we are going to deal with later. For now, as I said, this exercise is about making observations. So just make that observation, but remember it. Now, fast forward again. Can you see the market overstretched itself? And probably the same buyers that got long before. Remember, the 36, 7, 50, 19, and so on we saw. As the market moved against them, they rushed to get out and became sellers. So the buyers on the right became sellers on the left. Think about it. Let's quickly go back to the long move. Now, I have a question for you. Let's say you were one of these people that bought here. You bought 50 units at 124.13. That is you. If the market starts to go against you, as it's doing here, and you bought right at the top, how are you going to feel? Happy? Probably not. You're going to be nervous, worried. Your P&L, profit and loss, is going to be negative. Do you have an unlimited bank balance? No, of course not. At some stage, do you agree? You are going to be forced to get out of your trade. And you're not the only one, because there were plenty of other buyers around. You saw that for yourself. Everyone is going to get out at the same time as the market falls more and more. You see, it becomes a snowball. Those other buyers around you are also in the same position. And this is the end result. Do you see why I said the same buyers on the right become the sellers on the left? They got squeezed, forced to take action, which leads me to my final 2 points. If you got long there at the top and the market starts to move against you and quickly, you bought 50 units, right? Say you're now down, losing $10,000 for argument's sake. You agree? You're going to get the hell out of that position. Do you care where any technical indicator is on your chart, where any trend line is on your chart, what artificial intelligence is telling you. No, you are down $10,000. You are going to get the hell out of that position. In an extreme scenario, you may even get margin called by your broker and your position is closed out automatically. Your retail indicator, trend line, Fibonacci, artificial intelligence tool, and all the other rubbish retail traders look at, it isn't going to help you. Can you see the market is 100% moving up and down because of the positioning of buyers and sellers? Or put another way, large professional traders or institutions are buying and selling to each other all day, sometimes overstretching themselves, as you saw here, forcing themselves or others to get out, which causes the market to either continue or, in this case, revert back to where it started. That is why the market goes up, comes back down. Institutions' positioning or their interactions. In fact, let's fast forward to the end of this video. Did you notice the market simply settled back to where it started? This is all the market is doing all day, getting long or short, overstretching itself and forcing or squeezing people in positions to take action, which either results in continuation or, in this case, reversion. That is all it is doing all day. Buyers and sellers, you can see them here interacting with each other, no different to any other business in the world. I'll prove it to you. Say you own a shop and you buy 50 units of milk, just like this person bought 50 units of pound dollar, and then say the price of milk collapses like we saw here, and the milk is about to go off. What are you going to do? Check the trend line on the milk chart? Use a technical indicator? Ask artificial intelligence? No, you are going to sell that milk as quickly and as cheaply as possible, just like those people who bought pound dollar at the top got the hell out of the market as it went against them. The interaction of buyers and sellers is what is moving every market in the world, including financial markets. Nothing to do with any retail lines, trend lines, AI tools, or any other nonsense. The sooner you start to realize that, quicker you could actually become a very good institutional or professional trader. To do that, you obviously need, at a minimum, to be looking at the correct information, market orders, and understanding them. You're in the right place to do that. Can't wait to keep helping you move forward. So let's get you set up with the depth of market so you can play about with it, and then we can swiftly move on to getting you eventually back on the charts. See you in the next video.